and this is, and I agree with you on all the points you made about the 401k. So what usually happens in a 401k is the company will put you in a 401k, and then most employees, they believe, oh, the company knows more about investing than I do.
Exactly.
And this is a question I always have for people when they come to 401ks, and I'll share a story with you a little bit later. Um, it's if a company, if a company, if you're an employee for a company, why would I put you in the best investment where you can make so much money where you can leave the company? Why would they
Right.
do it? It doesn't make sense, right? So what most companies do, they put most people in what they call a target retirement fund, and you set your date to retirement. So if you're 30 and then you're going to retire at, when you're 65, so then they'll put a 2000 what 70, 2000 whatever, 2060 target uh mutual fund. That's what they'll invest you in, closer to your retirement age. And then that fund itself is a mixture of stocks and bonds, and then it rotates as they get closer to you getting older. So what I mean by that is early on it's in more stocks than bonds, but then when you get closer to your retirement age, it goes more bonds and stocks. So now it gives you between a 4% or let's say 6% return. And then what happens is the part that everybody missed, if you actually go into your mutual fund, and I'm not going to show it on the screen because I don't want nobody to get me for, you know, giving financial advice. But if you pull up your 401k and you look at the mutual fund you're in, it's a thing that's called a prospectus that's inside your 401k. And Alex, me and you talked about it when we was going over your mom's 401k. But it's the thing that says the prospectus, and then it gives you the average return that the mutual fund did over 5 years, 10 years, and since inception. But if
Right.
you scroll down a little bit more, they have this thing called an expense ratio. And then the expense ratio, when you see it, the expense ratio 2%, 3%. So that means you're paying 2 to 3% of that return that you're getting a year to the manager of that fund. So all in all, you might do six, and that's why you're seeing 4% on your mom uh, returns. You might do 6%, but 2 to 3% is going to the management fees of it. So
Right.
that brings you down to 4% returns. And then there's another part on this prospectus that it gives you how this fund uh, performed against the benchmark. The benchmark is the S&P 500.
Right.
And the question I always ask is if your fund is performing less than the benchmark, which is the S&P 500, why not just be in the S&P 500?
Right.
And then and then it's always and then there's a list of mutual funds, but there's always one that will mimic the S&P 500. And
Right.
then if you pull up the S&P 500 mutual fund or whatever in the 401k, you'll see the expense ratio is 0.02%, 0.03%. So you're paying little to nothing in fees to be in that fund, and it outperforms everything that is benchmarked against. I remember on CNBC a couple weeks ago, they showed mutual funds that outperformed the S&P 500 or underperformed S&P 500 in the last 5 years. It's crazy to think that 83% of the mutual funds, of all the mutual funds out there, underperformed the S&P 500. So do you think that, or do you want to take the gamble and say, oh, the fund that my company put me in is going to outperform? No,
Right.
just play the benchmark. Just go with the S&P 500. So back
Right.
to that story I was telling you about where so I'm working. I won't say the company. I won't say the name or anything. But I'm working with this company, and we have a 401k. And one of the employees, they came to me and and we were just talking about investing, mutual funds, or anything like that. And then they asked me. They said, and then I said that almost to the same thing I just explained just now about how the expense ratios work and things like that. And then so she asked me, and I'm probably giving up too information when I say she, but she asked me, she said, hey, can you look at mine? I said, only if you want me to look at it. Sure. And then so we looked at the fund, and then I explained the same things I showed you: the benchmark, the expense ratio, and why not just be in the S&P 500. So of course she's a little weary because the company put me in these funds. The company wants the best for me, right? And then so, excuse me, I had to wet the whistle. But so the so we look at it, and then she's in the, like I say, target retirement, target retirement. She's been there for a pretty long time. And then so I said, this is what I'll do. I said, why not put a quarter or a half in what I'm talking about, and then you leave the other half or three quarters in what the company already have you in, and then let's circle back in a year and we'll see which one is outperforming which. So she agreed to it. She selected all the buttons and everything else. She did it all herself. And I said, look, I'm not changing this for you. I'll tell you what to do, and then the decision up to you. Go home, talk to your husband, and talk about it. But she came back, and then she switched her investments, and then she went 50-50. So, I said, we'll circle back in a year. 6 months later, she comes back and said, no, we need to change all of it. I said, why? She was like, because this is going up by X amount, the S&P, and this hasn't done nothing. I'm like, well, yeah. And I was like, that's what I was explaining. I was like, and that's what I was telling her. That's what I'm explaining to you, that you're going against the benchmark. Why not just invest in the benchmark? So then she ended up transferring the rest of her funds over there to the SPY. And, with turnover and things like that, then she ended up leaving the company. But she ended up giving me a call after she left the company. And then she said, you know what? I made more in the last 4 years, because years passed at this time. I made more in the last 4 years in being in the S&P 500 than I've made the total time I've been there. And she's been there a lot of years. I'm not going to say the number of years because I don't want to narrowing it down to which employee it was. But she was like, I made more in the time than I made the whole time being in the target retirement. And that's the thing that I want people to understand, that the company is not going to put you in the best place so you can leave.
Right.
And no matter what companies say, me, I'm a business owner myself. I want my employees to succeed. But do I really want them to succeed so much where they leaving and going somewhere else? Because I have good employees. So why would I want them to leave?
Right.
But I'm not gonna stunt their growth. I'm not gonna do like corporate America and try to stunt their growth, but I'm not in a hurry for them to leave either as a business owner. But I look at people different. I look at them as people first, then the business second, because if they do leave and move on to bigger and better things, I'm always happy for them. I always champion for them. If they going somewhere else, I'm always like, hey, this is a good person. If it's a good person. But really, as a business owner, I'm like, oh, now I got to find somebody else. Now I got to train somebody else. Now I got to get them up to date on the standards and procedures that we operate with. So those are the things that go on in corporate America that people don't understand, and they just put it on automatic pilot.